Hello everyone, I'm Brian Croydragon and welcome to the summer season of Box Adventures. What's the plan for today? As always, see what comes up. Well, we won't be doing a boss battle today, so Sigilness isn't gonna happen. Excuse me. What the hell does... Oh. Ah. Oh. Okay. Not sure how that works. Well, to the nether we go. I see another portal, and of course, we end up going to the nether. There we go. Mm. Um. Hmm. You want to hear something funny? Not ha ha kind of funny, but gee, that's interesting kind of funny. Um, okay, so H. Rider Haggard, in 1918 wrote a novel, a historical fiction novel titled The Moon of Israel. It's basically just a story of the Exodus told from the Egyptian perspective. What? You're fine. Now, as I was saying, the whole reason Haggard actually wrote the novel is because he believed that the usurper Amenmesi was the pharaoh of Exodus and not Merneptah. What? Any other person would have written a thesis. He wrote an entire novel. What? What? And on additional note, historians believe Amenmese to have either been the son of Ramses the Great or Merneptah. Haggard portrayed him as the son of Ramses' son Kamreset, who was Merneptah's elder brother, formed brother, I should say. They were both born of Iset Nofret. So, yeah, Haggard portrayed Amenmese as something that no historian views him as. Oh, and here's the funny thing. Despite the book, he's never been considered a candidate for the position of Pharaoh of the Exodus. I mean, he's been put forth as a candidate, but doesn't seem like anyone else is following the Amenmese theory. Also, what does that book tell us? That Merneptah's apparently been a candidate far longer than Ramses has. Book was written in 1918. Ramses, it basically amounts to him being the pharaoh of the Exodus and the Ten Commandments. He was first portrayed as such in the 1923 version, and then when Cecil B. DeMille remade it, of course, the 1956 version would keep Ramses as pharaoh. I mean, it's Ramses in theory. I say in theory because with the Battle of Kadesh having been transferred to his father Seti, I'm seriously questioning just how much the character can actually be called Ramses. I mean, the other things Ramses has going, only things that Ramses has going for him would be his 66-year reign, and even that itself wouldn't allow for such a thing. I'm not sure if that really does count as a reason to make him a candidate, but religious texts make reference to High Ramses having been built by the Hebrews, but it also makes reference to Pithon having been built, and that wasn't built until the 7th century BCE. Of course, no serious historians or theologians believe it is Ramses. Granted, there is an Egyptologist who has put Ramses forward, Christian Jacques, or is it Jacques Christian? He wrote the Ramses series. 5 novels. I've got books 2, 3, and 4, just don't have the first one and the 5th one. What the? course, I should go on note that even though no serious historian or theologian views Ramses as the pharaoh of the Exodus, so you always have those ones who will try to make the claim. I don't get involved in the debate. And I'm not about to use Moses' dates of birth lined up with the Egyptian history as support for a theory. I mean, it's great if I want to think outside the box and not use someone who's always being suggested, who's always being proposed for the position. But the fact is, the people who make claims of those dates of birth weren't, well, how do I put it this way? Those, dates of birth were written long after Rome had converted to Christianity, which in turn was long after the Roman conquest of Egypt, which was in turn long after Alexander the Great's conquest of Persia, which in turn was long after the Persian conquests of Egypt, blah blah blah. Easier to say, well, very long after the religious event. And besides, if I were to write something based on the Exodus, it wouldn't be so much the Exodus as the book of the taking of Ireland. Ireland's national epic. Which says that Gordon Glass, follower of the Gaelic race, was followed by a Scythian prince named Naul, and an Egyptian princess named Scota, who was daughter to the pharaoh of the Exodus. Yes, daughter. And basically, after the parting of the Red Sea, blah blah blah, death of the pharaoh, blah blah blah, Legaeons were expelled from Egypt. They settled in Scythia for a while and then spent a 440-year journey wandering the world, traveling, conquering, stuff like that, and then finally they reached Ireland. Yeah, I'm not making a play out of the whole thing. I would not make a play out of the whole thing because, well, it's a national epic. It's a doorstop of a novel. At least I guess. I don't know. I've never seen a copy. In a given Islam tradition against showing the faces of the Prophet, I'd not of the prophets, I'd not have Moses, Aaron, or Jethro ever appear on stage. I don't want my play banned. If I were to write such a thing, I wouldn't want it to be banned in the countries that practice Islam. I want it to be performed wherever. And of course, I'd pretty much be going along. The starting point of the play would be Moses' return to Egypt. Thinking about how to shorten the amount of scenes and the amount of characters is a good thing to do. Well, I should say the amount of roles. With Moses, Aaron, and Jethro not appearing as on-stage characters, that pretty much reduces 3 roles. But of course, was always the fear that some idiot, if they were to adapt it for the screen, would reinsert those 3, in which case I'd have to disown the adaptation. Jesus, going in circles. And actually, with Moses not being an on-stage character, that pretty much takes Moses and Aaron not being on-stage characters. Let's see. How many scenes does that cut down on? The staff turning into a serpent, And even then, even if that wasn't the case and I was including them, I wouldn't uh, use that scene anyway. I looked to the miniseries Moses the Lawgiver when Moses returns to Egypt and he meets Merneptah, who is the Pharaoh of the Exodus in that, but I should go on regularly incorrectly portray him as Ramses' grandson rather than as his son. I have no idea why. You basically have this whole dialogue, and Merneptah basically asks, "What are you going to do? Turn a staff into a snake? Any Egyptian sorcerer can do that." So yeah, that's basically pretty much that's pretty much what I do, even if I wasn't, even if I don't know if I'll ever write this play, but, it's a challenge that interests me. No Moses, no Aaron, no Jethro. And even if that wasn't the case, yeah. Any Egyptian sorcerer can do that, so why would that be very impressive? Yeah, to the Egyptians. I mean, Burt Lancaster was, I suppose he was around the, yeah, maybe not. Uh, I'd say Moses was made a bit younger. Well, not too much younger when he returned. Burt Lancaster was 62, but, the actor playing Merneptah, my god, was he ever an example of underage casting. Merneptah was, well, I've been over this many times before. He was about 60, perhaps late 60s, early 70s, when Ramses started at the age of 90, and he became pharaoh. The actor playing Merneptah, 39. Words fail me immensely. Okay. How do I compare that? Well, have you ever seen Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves? Set in 1194. You have Sean Connery as Richard Coeur de Lion. Richard was 37 in 1194. Sean Connery was 61 and definitely locked it. That casting of Renepta was for underage casting, what the casting of Sean Connery as Richard Coeur de Lion was for Dawson casting. I mean, the actor playing Ramsay's not bad. He was 78, 79. Pretty good. Granted, he was no Christopher Lee. I mean, we know Ramses was fair-skinned, so I don't really get worked up about his skin color. What I do get worked up about is when he's not portrayed as a redhead, and, well, let's just say the only films that get a... Oh, jeez. The only films that get a pass, the only portrayals that get a pass are the ones made prior to 1994, which was when we learned Ramses was a redhead. Oh, and the ones that portray him in his old age for obvious reasons. Jeez, what am I doing? Oh, and guess what? Genghis Khan, the one so many mispronounce the name of as Genghis Khan, redhead. Yeah, as you can imagine, as a redhead myself, well, my hair's darkened a bit, but I'm still a redhead. I'm not too fond of portraying historical redheads as something other. Richard Coeur de Lion and John Lackland. Redheads. They were redheads. You can imagine how many Robin Hood and Ivanhoe adaptations do not get that. Let's see here, Norman Rowland, I think he was red of hair, but Guy Wolf was black haired, I think. Air Programs International production and the Burbank Films Australia production both portrayed them with black hair. The 1982 production of Ivanhoe, my personal favorite. Can't tell if they're blonde or just light brown in hair color. Oh my god. You know what? I gotta get out of here. I gotta get out of here! Well, I keep going in circles. So the only thing for me to do is, jump into the lava. Thought this would be deeper. Hey. What? What, Alex? Hi. Come on up. Whoa. You are a good boy, Alex. Okay, let's see. Business. Soul Emerald. You know, it's actually funny about Burt Lancaster having played Moses in Moses the Lawgiver because he was considered for the role in the Ten Commandments back in 1956. Oh, that's good. So what can I say about Moses the Lawgiver? They're a bit on the disturbing side at times. I did not want to see the mummification of Bethia, but for some reason, well, it was as close as they could get to showing it in the 1970s. I I found it on shoutfactory.com or shout.tv, related to Shout. But the thing is, I did not want to see her mummification. Granted, it's not a historically accurate representation, and I'm thankful for that, but still, I did not want to see that. I don't know why. Huh. Well, I'm here. What else can I say? The demystification approach, very good. I mean, obviously, it was probably a budget. That approach was probably done for budgetary reasons initially, but they eventually just rolled with it. You've heard me go on about the actor for Merneptah being too young, and I'm perplexed as to why they portray Merneptah as Ramses' grandson instead of his son. Even though anyone who's looked at a history book can tell you that Merneptah indeed was Ramses' son. And there is indeed a disturbing scene, which I'm not going to talk about because I know it happened in the Bible, but I am not talking about it. I don't know, did it happen in the Bible? I can't remember. I know it happened in some religious text involving Moses, but I am not going into that. God. I can see where it's left out of most adaptations. the Hebrew that Moses saved by killing the Egyptian, an ungrateful Dathan. Uh, love that, actually. Having it be Aaron in a, let's see, I believe it was the 19, basically being it someone with a name actually makes it good, and in 1956 it was Joshua, even though he was like 40 years, yeah. In the Ten Commandments, the 1956 from the Ten Commandments, it was Joshua, even though he was like a, even though in religious texts, I'm just gonna say that because Moses is an important figure in Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Uh, well, to make it short, Joshua's 40 years younger than Moses, and well, obviously they changed it for the movie. Didn't I used to have torches that I was holding on to for many? W. Let's see here. Granted, Bethany's modification, I'm making it sound worse than it actually was. It's not actually that bad, but still, I found it disturbing. Perhaps because I'm just uncomfortable with the general concept of how the Egyptians went about it. Removal of the what the um hmm. Okay, boots are gone. Good lord, I really don't want to stay on the topic of the actor playing Renetta having been too young, but Hold on here. How do I put this? We don't see the adult Merneptah until Moses returns to Egypt. I'm not forgiving of that. It's a horrible case of underage casting. Perhaps one of the worst. The 1995 adaptation Moses, Frank Langella played him. He played Merneptah. He was 57. I'm more forgiving of that, and I'll tell you why exactly. It's because we're introduced to the adult. It's because Moses and Merneptah are portrayed as being the same age. Therefore, we have Frank Langella playing Merneptah both before Moses flees from Egypt and when he returns. I don't find that as bad. I mean, obviously at 57, he's closer to being in his 60s than a 39-year-old, but yeah, actually, you know what? Yeah, that actually is a better case. You've got, ugh. Oh, jeez, forget it. I've made my point. And what a point it is. honestly a problem I have with depictions of the fantastic or making or demythifying or depictions of the fantastic that have been demythified is that they don't always work well. If you do a depiction of the fantastic as fantastic, it might not come across as such. If you do it with the fantastic element removed, it might just seem boring. The hell was that? Oh, hello? What the? Java from hell. Isaac Asimov, in his Guide from the Bible, referred to Merneptah as being a weak ruler or something along those lines. But when it came to diplomacy, I wouldn't really call him weak. You have to remember he became a pharaoh, an old man, when he was an old man. So if you're referring to if he's referring to his reign length, a decade, well, as I said, he became pharaoh when he was an old man. And then you have the fact that when it came to diplomacy and Egypt's defense, he was his father's equal. So Merneptah basically ended up continuing the success of Ramses' rule for an additional 10 years. And then, well, we all know what happened, don't we? Well, if you don't, I'll tell you. You see, when Merneptah died, historians believe that Seti II was out of the country, out of Egypt at the time, leaving Amenmese the ability to take the throne. Amenmese was recognized as a usurper. Of course, he still had supporters. Many recognized Seti II as the true heir to the throne. And so there were two pharaohs in Egypt and there was a civil war for 3 years. Yeah, that was basically the beginning of the end of the 19th dynasty. 3 years after in the Civil War, Seti dies, and the individual we know as Siptah, who could have been the son of Seti II, Amenmesi, or even Merneptah, became pharaoh. He was a child, and he died a child. And then the woman we know as Tuzret became pharaoh, and unfortunately she died without issue, so died without issue, had no nephew, nobody to pass the throne on to, and so actually I'm not I'm thinking I'm forgetting something. I think she might have actually been usurped by the founder of the 20th dynasty, who might have had ancestry from the 19th, who might have been descended from Ramses, so Ramses' bloodline might have been continued, but and around with the amount of children he had, it's not like, and with the amount of children he had and the amount of people who claim descent from him, even today, it's what's that? It's not the moon or the sun. That would be the sun. Well, it's not like Ramses' bloodline was ever in any real danger of going out, of being extinguished. Okay, you know what? Hmm. Hmm. You know, it's kind of funny. Heroes of Greek mythology and Norse mythology aren't too different in many ways, but the funny thing is that ancient Greek, the heroes of Greek mythology actually, there is evidence that the ancient Greeks actually did wear horned helmets. Well, they might have in the case of Norse mythology, but actually, what am I saying? It isn't. Horned helmets went out with the Bronze Age. And well, let's see, or Sigurd is considered contemporary to Attila the Hun, so obviously post Bronze Age. Turned Gaul into France. Technically, what we call France weren't well, it's an abridgment. It is a abridgment. It they turned Gaul into Francia, should be said. Then Francia divided. Francia, Francia, whatever. It divided, and West Francia is what we now call France. Well, the Angles and Saxons turned Roman Britain into Saxon England. Again, it's an abridgment. England didn't exactly happen until the unification of the Saxon kingdoms, which began under Attila and I believe finished Attila, Alfred the Great, and ended under one of his grandsons. Yeah, I think Caligula trying to make his horse a senator might, or well, at least some form of, or give him some sort of political office might be legend. Granted, Caligula was no doubt insane, but probably not as insane as some like to portray him as. Of course, he still had problems, but thankfully, they might have been exaggerated. They were kind of exaggerated. We now know it was just one of his sisters he was having relations with. Ah, apparently what we would today call a shopping mall, the first ever, was built by the Emperor Trajan. Oh, well, this is helpful. Augustus, Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, Nero, Galba, Otho, Vitellius, Vespasian, Titus, Domitian, Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, Antoninus Pius, Marcus Aurelius, Lucius Verus, Commodus, Pertinax, Didius Julianus, Septimius Severus, Caracalla, Geta, Macrinus, Elagabalus, Alexander Severus, Maximinus I, Gordian, Gordian II, Papianus, Balbinus, Gordian II, Philip, Decius, Hostilian, Gallus. Yep, they're here. What? Hi. What, baby? Okay, what am I doing? We're fine. Hello, Alex. Come on up. Hey, Goofy. Oh, okay, careful with those claws, Alex. Got a scrape on my left Achilles tendon that keeps reopening. I'm just grateful his claws aren't anywhere near there. Mm, hmm. Excuse me. Wait, what? Oh, jeez. Again, as long as it's not anywhere near my Achilles tendon, I'm fine. Still a bit painful though. What the? Now that I think about it, demethified versions of famous tales might have started and it might have only became popular for television in the 70s. Of course, I've mentioned Moses and the Lawgiver, but there's also, well, that was a mini-series, but there's also the television series Arthur of the Britons. No Camelot, no Merlin, no Excalibur, but there's plenty of things in it. It's actually very entertaining. It keeps Arthur and Kay as some form of brother, but rather than being foster, it's adoptive. Of course, I'm not exactly sure what the difference is. And Kai, as Kay is called, is actually a Saxon, while Arthur is, well, a Breton. And they were both raised by Lud, who has a forearm of iron, and it's actually amusing, or kind of tragic how Lud came to adopt Kai. Kai's natural follower killed Lud's wife and natural. Lud killed Kai's follower. In his grief, Lud walked away and Kai followed the only person there was to follow, and that was that was Lud. Where even am I? Hmm. Maybe I can find something to read to you, all dear viewers. Well, why not? It has been called America's greatest ghost story, and it happened right here in Tennessee. Well, that's certainly a long way from where I am. In the decades since the witch or spirit first manifested around the Bell family on their In the decades since the witch or spirit first manifested around the Bell family on their farm in Robertson County in the early 19th century, the Bell Witch has attracted the attention of ghost hunters, skeptics, supernaturalists, religious leaders, storytellers, authors, historians, and curious citizens from all over the world. Earliest, Earlier sources of the Bell Witch legend are dubious at best, but provide a terrific look into the pervasiveness of the legend and the progression of the Bell Witch story through the years. The two most famous sources, an authenticated history of the famous Bell Witch by M. V. Ingram, published in 1894, and A Mysterious Spirit, The Bell Witch of Tennessee by Charles Bailey Bell, are essentially the same narrative, differing only in detail and style. Both of these sources tell the fascinating story of the supernatural and provide the basis for much of the Bell family rich folklore. Okay. Can I find one of those texts? Or maybe... Oh, jeez, forget it. Okay. You know what? I tried. I really did. But I am not... Um... Well, jeez. Bell Witch, not good. I'm not reading that. That would take hours. Months, maybe. Reading a text about that thing? Is it horrifying? Oh, yes, but the fact is, it's the sheer length of it that makes me hesitant to read it more than anything. Well, listening and recording, I'm not going to. Well, let's continue on our way to nowhere in particular. Huh. Okay, let's see here. Well, what can I talk about? I got Twitch Sings. Not sure if I'll ever use it, but who wants to hear me sing? Why would anyone want to hear me sing? Honestly, the reason I know about the Bell Witch in the first place is due to documentaries like Mystery Hunters and Truth or Scare, which of course I did a commentary for that specific episode just yesterday. Night Visitors. Good lord, well, I attempt to do a commentary, but I tend to get rather absorbed into it, and without anyone to bounce off of, I don't really do that much talk. Wait, what am I saying? I did the Bermuda Triangle yesterday. Or was it Wednesday? I did Night Visitors sometime this week, as well as the Bermuda Triangle. I know I did Bigfoot on Tuesday. and Castle and Ghosts of Scotland on Monday. Jeez. Which was Wednesday and which was yesterday? Jeez, I can't remember. What's today? I think today's Castle Ghosts of Wales. That I'll be doing a commentary on. Excuse me. It's not a zombie villager, nothing to worry about. Granted, I very much doubt we'd be seeing a husk around here. Haunted Britain, would that be a better choice to read from? Next I'm at the art gallery or some blah 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 blah. Before you ever or that, I lost my mind at that moment. It's back now. I should see if there's any ghost stories I can read. I mean, technically, the only ghost stories I have are, damn, what's the book called? It's not Celtic Fairy Tales because, well, that's all over the Celtic territories. What is it? Irish folk tales? Right. Oh, that's a delayed reaction. Irish fairy and folk tales. There's some ghost stories on that. Technically, one's not so much a story as a poem, but whatever. What the hell? Okay then. Well, I'm grateful for that, but still. Well, I doubt we'll never be watching the rest of the Caesars. It's no longer on YouTube, so. I mean, I can read about it. I know what it covers, but I can't. And but that's not as good as actually getting the chance to watch it now, is it? Wait, where am I? I'm familiar about this place, or... No. Have I ever been here before? I don't know. That design is so common it pops up everywhere. Mm, where am I anyway? I don't know why, but for some reason I'm thinking that I'm near Justicia. Where the hell even am I? Uh, okay, I'm far from Justicia, and thus far or even farther from Greenleaf. Hey, what's up, Alex? You're fine. What's up? What? 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 Hey, you. You want to snuggle on your blanket? Okay, snuggle on your blanket. Okay, let's see our haunted Britain. True ghost stories from Central Ireland. Good lord, I want Castle Lep, not the whole damn isle. Oh, jeez. No, I don't want the entire castle. I just want that specific ghost. No, no, no. Right. Lepcastle.net. What? Good lord. Oh. Okay, that's better. Actually, I'm not gonna read this. This is crazy long, and I don't like the background because it makes some of the text near the bottom difficult to see. E time 12:42. Alex, you're fine. Whatever happened to IBM? No, it still exists. Not sure why. I was thinking it might have gone out of business. Uh-huh. Okay, I think I might be looking for the wrong thing. I'm looking for actual supposed hauntings, not fiction. Oh really? There was actually a magazine called Ghost Stories Magazine. A magazine called Ghost Stories, which contained almost nothing but ghost stories. Fascinating. Get back on there, you damn slipper. Hmm. Come on, I'd like to at least move a bit. Well, that's all for today, everyone. I'm Brian Croydragon signing out. Stay Shrey.